A decision which I don't think shocks anyone in the footballing world. Erik Ten Hag has been fired by Manchester United. This has been coming, hasn't it? This has been coming since even before they won the cup in the summer. I don't know why it's been dragged out this long, and I think this builds into a bigger question about the new ownership and the new leadership at Manchester United, into why they carried on, why they persisted with Erik Ten Hag for so long, whilst knowing that it wasn't working. There hasn't been a recognisable style of play during his entire tenure at the club, in my opinion. Every time I've watched Manchester United play, you have no idea what you're going to get. But this season, it has been particularly dire. At the minute, Manchester United are sat at 14th in the Premier League. They are only 7 points off of the top four, but they're also only 7 points off of relegation. You know, when you're a club the size of Manchester United, an institution, and you've got Bournemouth and Brentford and clubs of that stature above you in the league comfortably, and in my opinion, teams that will probably finish higher in the league than them no matter who they get as a manager now. I could eat my words with that one, but those are clubs that have been run efficiently, brought up young players, brought in a good squad in a great way, and Manchester United just haven't done that for a long time. It's not only in the Premier League that they're struggling, they're also 21st in the Europa League group. They're yet to win a game in Europe, having drawn all three, which is just unacceptable. Even seeing Manchester United in the Europa League at their size is strange within itself, and I think there really has to be a question around who they choose as a replacement and having a reset of expectations. You're going to hear a lot of big names get thrown about, and obviously it was only last summer that they were questioning Erik Ten Hag's abilities and interviewing other managers such as Thomas Tuchel, etc., who now has the England job, so is no longer an option. But who do you want? If you're a Manchester United fan, please leave a comment and let me know who you want as the next permanent manager. Please remember to like and subscribe as well. I appreciate every single person who hits those buttons. But that decision is a very difficult one. I think maybe Xavi could be a shout from Barcelona. He didn't have a particularly amazing time there, and you can see what's happening right now in their resurgence. So does that show that maybe his ability isn't quite as good as many people thought it was initially? Gareth Southgate is an option. I would not want him anywhere near my club. And if I was Manchester United, given Southgate's negative style of play, I don't think that it'd work. I think the way in which the Premier League's played now, a lot of fans, a lot of people, players, etc., all want to play fluid, entertaining, attacking football. And that is not something which Gareth Southgate brings. However, similar to Erik Ten Hag, he might be a good candidate should you want to go ahead with that project, with someone that's going to stay with the club for a long time, implement the right ethos and the right state of mind. Because I do think on Ten Hag, that is one of the things that's really let him down. He's had a lot of issues, obviously, with Ronaldo, who is arguably Manchester United's biggest legend of the last 10, 15 years. Of course, players like Rooney at the club for a lot longer, but Ronaldo becoming one of the best players in the world, starting that journey at Manchester United. To have huge issues with Ten Hag and with the club as a whole really wasn't a good look. Then got Jadon Sancho, who has been paid an incredible amount of money, looked like one of the next wonder kids at Borussia Dortmund, came to Manchester United, and it all just came crashing down, especially under Erik Ten Hag. Their relationship was toxic. And then it looks like there's even been some issues with Marcus Rashford over the years. Those have never particularly been confirmed, but there's been a fair few times Rashford has been dropped out the squad, and he's one of Manchester United's star boys. And I think that those issues personally with players have also led to a massive detrimental impact on the pitch. You've seen Rashford's form has been hit and miss. Rashford's form has been hit and miss his whole career, to be honest. But you would hope a manager like Ten Hag, who was meant to come in as a project, bring these young players through, breed confidence within them, would have been able to get the best out of Rashford. And he really hasn't. Maybe someone like Gareth Southgate could do that, and in the long term could have a lot of positive impacts on the club. But I think in the short term, in terms of trying to achieve a good finish this season and get back into the top 8 potentially, maybe get those European places again next year, I really don't think that Southgate is the shout. For me, the most interesting one, and the one that I think Manchester United should go for, is Thomas Frank of Brentford. You can see how well they're doing right now. They lost their star man in Tony, but it's not impacted them. The fact that they have managed to stay in the Premier League successfully for this many years and are now fighting in the top half of the table. They've had a few turbulent times, they've had a few tricky seasons, a few tricky moments, but they are doing so well. And I think they're an example of, if you stick with a manager, if you stick with a plan, then it can work. But can Thomas Frank work at Manchester United? Let me know what you think in the comments. I really do believe that if they could pry him away from Brentford, which by the way is no given. I know a lot of people think, well, it's Manchester United. If you're Thomas Frank, why wouldn't you go there? Well, he has been building something incredibly successful at Brentford, which looks like it's starting to come to a culmination at the minute. Maybe he'll want to stay there and see that one out and see just how far he can take it. But if he were interested in that job and I was the Manchester United leadership, I'd be all over that. He can come in, implement an exciting style of play. He knows the Premier League really well. He's played against many of these players, probably studied Manchester United extensively when Brentford have been going to play them. And Brentford aren't exactly a huge club. I would imagine that the money they'd have to pay to pry him from Brentford's hands wouldn't be an astronomical figure, whereas a lot of other top managers in the world are either in work or at a club where you simply wouldn't be able to pay them to get them out of that job. I think it's funny now when we look back at the last few Manchester United managers and how it's gone down. Weirdly, Erik Ten Hag actually has the second highest win percentage since Fergie, which is baffling given he's just been fired and it's a very justified sacking. The only manager to beat him is Jose Mourinho, who had a 54% win percentage, with Erik Ten Hag sitting at 52%. Admittedly, the remainder are all within 45 to his 52%, so it's not exactly a massive difference. But Mourinho was massively disrespected at Manchester United. And when you take a look back at those interviews saying it was one of his biggest achievements to keep them in the top four in the Premier League, finishing second with them, I think he was right. And I think now when United fans look back at his sacking and the way that he was taken apart and removed by the club, maybe that was the biggest downfall, because admittedly, Mourinho's not done particularly impressive things at Roma, or, I mean, Fenerbahce's a pretty short stint so far. But United kind of had him ticking. I mean, again, it's not particularly an exciting style of play, but he was an exciting man. I miss Mourinho in the Premier League, and I think he actually did an okay job there. But I think the board need to get this one right. This is their first massive decision. They need to appoint someone that they believe in and are going to back for a fair few years. As I say, I think Thomas Frank's one. Obviously, Van Nistelrooy is going to take over in the interim. I don't know a huge amount about him. I know he's been there for a little while working with Ten Hag. He's a club legend and an amazing striker in the Premier League back in the day. Maybe he can do something. I mean, you see it at clubs all the time. He knows the players well. He's got their trust. I'm sure if he implements something a little bit more exciting than Erik Ten Hag, just something to get him ticking, they do have the squad and the players to do well in this league. And if Van Nistelrooy can make the most of it, maybe he'll end up with a job on a permanent. But I have a feeling the board are going to want to make a statement, and I don't think hiring Van Nistelrooy, who already works at the club, particularly makes that statement. I could be wrong, and as I say, it happens all the time. But where does this leave Manchester United as a whole? It's a really difficult one for me. I think their league finish really depends on which manager they get in. And it's annoying from a Manchester United point of view, because if they would have just got rid of Ten Hag whilst they were already interviewing other candidates in the summer, I think that they'd have probably been challenging for top four. They invested further in the squad with De Ligt, who is a Ten Hag boy. Why did they do that when it was so obvious that it wasn't working? To be honest, I think the De Ligt signing is a smart one. On a free transfer, I think in the long run, should he avoid injuries, he will be a valuable asset to the club. But now when you look at that squad and what's happened over the last few years, you've got Onana, Anthony, De Ligt, so many players that fit the Ten Hag mould. You think, wow, Whoever inherits this might want a whole nother refresh, might not agree with the style of play in which those players have been brought in the pretense to play. So now, is it going to happen? Whoever comes in, is it going to work? Because Anthony's not good enough. We all know that Anthony is not good enough. And they've spent a hell of a lot of money. The wage bill's high. No one's going to want to come in and pick up a lot of these players on the money that they're on. So I think it leaves them in a sticky position for the next couple of years. Where do I think they'll finish though? As I say, very dependent on manager. I do think whoever comes in, if it gives them a little boost and they start performing even slightly better, they can challenge for the top 8. They certainly have the squad to do so. We haven't seen a lot of their players make the most of their potential since Ten Hag came in, and there's no reason that a new manager can't do a lot better than them. But I do think Manchester United fans really need to adjust their expectations. They cannot be expecting a new manager to come in and straight away start challenging for the top 4 again. I think that they're past that. I think as a club, a real rebuild needs to happen before they're even close to challenging for those top 4 spots. You look at the quality in Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester City, Aston Villa, even Chelsea are looking fantastic this season and have spent a hell of a lot of money. Manchester United are just nowhere near those levels anymore. And whoever they get as the next manager, I think that in itself needs to be implemented. They can't be expected that the weight of expectation can kill them. If they come in and the Manchester United fans are expecting the world, it's just going to end badly again. You need to reset and target top 8, no longer target top 4, because the squad and the club is just not there. But if you have enjoyed this video, please do remember to hit like and subscribe. Leave your thoughts on the sacking of Erik Ten Hag and who you think his replacement should be in the comments. I read the comments, I reply to a few, so I will be interacting. I'll see you next time. Peace.